Hi, welcome to the Meldham Tapes. Well, on this show, I have the great pleasure of talking to an old buddy of mine, John Cougar Mellencamp. I got to know John around about the late 70s, and at that stage, he was known as Johnny Cougar and had a big hit with I Need a Lover. Well, he hated that song, and so did a lot of other people, apparently. But since then, he's changed his name from Johnny Cougar to John Cougar to John Cougar Mellencamp. And I guess you could say that his music has changed with the names. He went through a terrible period in the late 70s and the early 80s, where the critics really slammed into him, called him a phony, shallow. They were just a few of the words they used. Since then, he has proved to be one of the greatest American singer-songwriters in the world today in contemporary rock. He is so interesting to talk to. I hope you enjoy the conversation. So here it is, John Cougar Mellencamp in profile.
Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the cloud. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the cloud.
Born in the country, in Indiana, Seymour. What was it like to be growing up in your teens there?
Well, it was very rural, you know, very rural, and you had a certain, I would assume it's just about like growing up in the country here. You know, you had to make your own amusement, and that basically is how I got involved with the, you know, the music business. Right.
What sort of music? I know you were very much into 60s music, but what music was sort of influencing you the most then?
Black music. Yeah, you know, when I was a kid, you could just listen to, we had like 2 radio stations. This before FM became popular in the United States, so we could listen to WLS in Chicago, and then we could listen, and that was an AM station at the time that came in at night, because the way they did transmitters. And then in Louisville, Kentucky, there was a station called WKY. And basically it was all top 40, but top 40 radio in the United States at the time was very interesting because they played all different types of records. The format wasn't as tightly you know, scheduled as the formats are today. So you could hear rock, pop, soul, jazz, funk, a little bit of country and western, and it was all on one radio station. So it was, you know, it was pretty good growing up as a kid. You didn't have to change the dial as much to hear what you wanted to hear as you do today.
All right, the fellow students and friends you went to school with at that stage, what were their aspirations when
we
being in a
didn't,
country
you know,
town?
none of us had any aspirations, you know. As old as 18 or 19, I didn't have a job, wasn't looking for a job, and wasn't interested in finding a job. You know, we were pretty, I guess you could call it lazy, but I don't think it's much different than any other 18, 19-year-old person was. You know, you could think back when you were that age, and, you know, you didn't really want to do too much of anything at the time because you were too busy living, you know, finding out about life. Wasn't much to do, it was a small town, but not much to do on a Saturday night, you know. So, yeah, you know, it was motorcycles and just getting in trouble.
You were saying, or a quote of yours was, if you couldn't pull a chick, then you'd be in a fight.
Well, you know, I think that has to, there's a lot of people like that, even today in the town I live in. I think it's the physical contact that people enjoy, you know, of some sort, whether it be boom or whether it be, you know, some kind of sexual thing with someone. But I think basically it was a physical contact, just the contact with people. You know, you were, like I said, we were very interested in living, and it was very easy to hate back then. You know, if you remember the climate of the times, it was the mid-60s. There were a lot of things to rebel against. Not unlike today, there's still a lot of things that people can be active against in the United States. But at that particular time, you know, there was Vietnam War, there was Nixon, there was a whole bunch of things. There was parents, teachers, schools, you know, all the typical things that teenagers rebel against. And, you know, sure, yeah, I was right in line with all that.
With the Vietnam War, was that affecting schools? I mean,
sure, yeah.
Was it bringing politics into the schools at that stage?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was a junior in high school, and I went to Washington, D.C. to the moratorium against the war in 1969 and 1970. And, you know, we used to wear black armbands to school to protest the Vietnam War. And, you know, it's funny that you find out now how much the United States and the rest of the world actually were being manipulated by a few businessmen at that time, which was always a suspicion. But not till 20 years after did we find out that it indeed was the truth. So,
all right. When did you first then start taking a direct interest in music? In other words, you know, you participating in it.
Well, I was in bands, you know, but it was more or less just a reason to get out of the house. I mean, I was in a band when I was 14, 15 years old called the Crepe Soul. Me and a black guy sang, you know, Sam and Dave stuff and James Brown and James and Bobby Purified and stuff like that. And, you know, we'd play at colleges and, you know, fraternities and high school dances. And every now and then we played a bar, you know, but we were really too young to be playing at those places.
Right.
But, you know, that's when I first joined the band. But, you know, any idea of, you know, making a career out of it, because, you know, really, growing up in a town of 14,000 people, which is how many people live in the city I live in, you know, rock stars or people that made records or people in movies, they were really from outer space. You know, you just couldn't imagine, I don't know, you couldn't imagine, you name it, coming into the gas station saying, hey, can you change the tires on my car? It just wouldn't happen, you know.
Right.
They were romantic figures, you know.
So, when did you then meet George Green? And when did you start writing together?
George and I had known each other since, matter of fact, we used to go to church together. And we've always known each other since as long as I can remember.
Yeah?
Yeah, forever. George went to the same grade school I went to, and on through high school, and his parents went to the same church that I, you know, went to occasionally, and we've known each other for a long, long time.
So
George was always an intellectual type of guy, you know. We didn't hang around with each other, but we knew each other. You know, George always wanted to be a writer of novels and books, and, you know, he was always really into literature and you know, quite knowledgeable guy about all that stuff. And where I was always quite the contrast, you know, when we were in high school, George used to sit in the cafeteria and play chess, and of course I never went to the cafeteria. I was out, you know, smoking and getting drunk at lunch hour.
Right.
So that's the difference between George and I, but for some reason we were friends. Not running around friends, but friends.
So when did you first start writing together then?
It was funny. It's a funny story. We were about 18 years old, and I remember there was a record that just came out that was real popular in the United States, and we were riding around together. He was in college, and he had come back to Seymour, and I said, man, can you believe some guy could write a song this good? And George looked at me and says, well, I think I could write lyrics like that. Of course, he couldn't, but
right.
And I couldn't write lyrics like that, but it was just the assumption that, well, if this guy can do it, and that's kind of like how I got in the music business. I looked at things, well, these people are doing it, why can't I do it? You know, and I've always maintained that everybody's a songwriter given the opportunity. You know, the reason I've become the type of songwriter I am is that I've had the luxury of having 10, 12, 15 years to do nothing but, you know, you've got to learn who you are and what you want to say in a song in that amount of time. I mean, if you listen to my earlier records, I was completely floundering. I was just a teenage kid writing about very, you know, his frustrations. But now I feel that I understand that the smallest victories are the biggest victories.